It's about the I got to say, it's the stupidest thing in sports.
Whoa, he has trouble with the snap, and the ball is free. It's picked up by Michigan State. Jalen Watts Jackson, and he scores on the last play of the game.
Ground ball, right side. Cabrera will cut it off. Galarraga covers. He's out. No, he's safe.
Phoenix has the foul, and a pinnacle ball throws it down.
DeBrincat gets it back to Goss's Barron across now King.
Save River. They score! Raymond!
Big five. Johnson to throw, and it's caught by St. Brown for a first down.
This is BS Sports.
And away we go. There's a little bit of hold on. I'm having a little bit of technical difficulties, I believe. I mean, I have my microphone on here connected, but for whatever reason, my soundboard, is that why? I'm so confused. This is so strange. Let me try closing out of it. We're going to do a little bit of live technical difficulties here. We're going to figure it out. Oh, there was a noise. Oh, I must have done it. Somehow. All right, let's switch over. Now, okay, there we go. I had to actually hit continue. Okay. I was trying to hit one of my.
Do you work on that shot?
That's what I was trying to hit one of my soundboard items, and it wasn't working. But now it is working.
Do you work on that shot?
I do work on that shot, Patrick Ewing. Every day. Let me double check that it is.
Do you work on that shot?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely working. All right. Anyhow, welcome to the show. I do apologize if my voice sounds a little raspy. I believe the changing of the temperature here in mid-Michigan may be affecting my voice, feeling a little congested, a little sinuses, stuff, and things. And I'll probably be coughing throughout the show. So if you don't like the sound of coughing, too bad. Get used to it. Learn to love it. Learn to love it. As all good things in life. But we got a good show. Not a great show. We got a great show. We got the best show ever. All right. Best show ever. The best show of the year. That's a very high bar to beat. Best show of the year. We got college basketball. We got pro basketball. We got NBA. I already talked about that. We got the NHL. We got the Canadians ruining my week. And on two fronts, really, in a certain way. We'll talk about it very briefly. Not going to spend too much time on it because it's pretty much old news at this point. And it's already starting. And that's it. There was actually no more. But I'm going to periodically just because I got to be honest, fellas. I don't know how long I can last. I don't know how long I can last talking for a very long time, but we're going to do it. We're going to do our best. If you see a little, yeah, you can see it right there in the corner. That's my humidifier. All right. That's so that my voice doesn't turn into smithereens. So don't worry. Nothing is burning. It's water. Hopefully. That'd be very dangerous because it's right by my movie collection as well as my television and my router. So we don't want any of that to be destroyed. Don't want any of that to be destroyed. But anyway, enough chit chat. Enough delaying the show. Here we go. Let's just jump right into it. So, Michigan State. I gotta say, I've waited a very long time for me to say this. Michigan State is back. The Spartans are back in basketball. And I gotta say, I was a little disappointed coming into this week, or really, I guess mostly coming into this week. I was expecting a whole lot more talk about this game. The fact that Michigan State went into U of M, went into Ann Arbor, and promptly showed them the business. First of all, just from a statistical standpoint, Michigan State shot 40% from three to Michigan's 23. They had 11 turnovers in the game to Michigan's 15. I'm pretty sure they didn't even have a turnover in the second half. They almost had 10 more rebounds than Michigan. They shot a little under the field goal percentage as Michigan did, but by like less than 1%. It was just domination, utterly. I mean, you can look at the game flow, and around the midway point of the second half, it was basically just Michigan State having their way with Michigan. And that propels them right back to that first place spot in the Big Ten, now currently tied because Michigan got the win last night over Nebraska. Boy, that was an ugly game. I didn't watch it, but I'm glad I didn't. I got a few points I got to make here. Point number one, we have to talk about Jace Richardson. Jace Richardson is, if he's not talked about as one of the rising stars in college basketball after this game, then you're missing out. Like you're not paying attention to the game right now. Jace Richardson had another great night, shooting 7 for 12, 2 for 4 from 3. He had 21 points, and let me see. He didn't have any assists, but he had 6 rebounds. He is, growing into that, young guard of the mold of a Cassius Winston. Let me just say it. Like this is a guy that immediately, pretty much, comes into the fold here at Michigan State and has propelled himself from a bench player to probably one of the best starters on the team. And he is a freshman. Like, he has been absolutely incredible. And I'm not saying that he's, going to be the Big Ten player of the year or anything like that, but he certainly should be in contention for, some of the major awards, especially for a freshman. And if he continues to develop this way, the future seems very bright for Michigan State basketball if he is going to be leading the way as your, number one point guard option. Yeah, he is, going to get better. That to me seems like the obvious thing because he has gotten better over the year. So I can only assume that under more coaching, more development with Izzo, it's going to be a Cassius Winston type situation. Now, hopefully it doesn't age like complete, cheese out in the sun, but it seems clear to me. He's had a stretch of games here where he has taken over. I mean, not the Iowa game. That hasn't happened yet. Maybe he will take over in that game. He had the crazy performance against Oregon in the comeback where he scored almost 30 points. He just had the 21-point night against Michigan. He is a certified stud. And if you don't know, you're going to learn. You're going to learn pretty soon. If you haven't played Michigan State yet this year and you haven't found out about Jace Richardson, you're going to find out. Furthermore, I want to talk about this because a lot of my feeling out of this game was not just, okay, we beat our rival. That's always fun. The way we beat our rival is a little uncharacteristic of this team. The fact that we shot 40% from 3 is realistically just not what this team is. Like, this team is near the bottom in terms of three-point shooting in college basketball. We really don't have a whole lot of shooters. However, it is a huge sign of good things to come that when Michigan clogged the lane like they did, Michigan State really couldn't drive to the basket like they normally do. They couldn't, pass the ball inside to Kohler or Cooper, who are deadly underneath the rim. They couldn't really do that. And you could see it in the box score because neither of those guys really had amazing games. I mean, Jackson Kohler played 20 minutes and he had just 2 points. Like, buddy, did you even play? Cooper, on the other hand, he had at least 6 points, so he was a little bit better, shot 3 for 4, but, he was not as much of a factor. But the players that did become a factor were the best shooters on the team. It was the Trey Hollemans having 18 points off the bench. It was obviously, I already talked about it, Jace Richardson. And it was even Jeremy Fears, who had a great night, 10 points, had a steal, a couple of assists, a rebound, 4 for 8 from the field, 50% from 3. This team doesn't have a whole lot of shooters, but when things were not going right, when Shimon Zapawa went out with a big 0 in terms of points, who stepped up? It was the shooters. It was Jace Richardson. It was Trey Holloman. It was Jeremy Fears. And even to another extent, Jaden Akins as well. Even though he only shot 1 for 6 from 3, he still had 11 points on the board. By the end of the game, excuse me, by the end of the game, Michigan's defense was pretty much worn out. and Michigan State was having a much easier time. Or did I say Michigan State's defense? Michigan's defense was worn out enough to the point where Michigan State could pretty much just have their way with them, and there was a lot of kind of garbage time points at that stage. But either way, we can see that Michigan State has the capability to win those games. Now, is this consistent? Am I going to expect them to be shooting around 40% for the rest of the stretch? No. But if they can even do, 30% or 35%, then absolutely, not only is this team capable of winning the Big Ten, this team is capable of making it to the Final Four. We're not gonna say national championship just yet because it's very hard to win national championships. I mean, last time a Big Ten team won, it was Michigan State back in 2000. Not gonna go there, but either way, Michigan State has shown an ability to be able to win games this way because we saw in the Indiana game, a game that they really should have won. Thought maybe, okay, has Indiana cracked the code? Are other teams just going to copy this? And then, coming off of that, you have Illinois on the road, you beat them. You have Purdue at home, and then Michigan on the road, and you beat all them. So it seems more and more that the Indiana loss was more fluke than it was actual, showing you that the Spartan team is not that good. Now, with all that being said, there is still a lot to go. Michigan State, while yes, currently they sit on top of the Big Ten with a 13-3 conference record, 22-5 overall record. Obviously, the conference record is what matters at this point. You still have 2 more road games and 2 more home games. Final 4 stretch here. Tomorrow night, you got top 16 Maryland on the road. That's a tough game. Then you got on Sunday, Wisconsin at home. That's going to be another tough one, albeit it will be at home. The only game you got here down the stretch that really shouldn't be that much of a concern is on the road against Iowa. And that's even, because that's on the road. You still got to travel, even though Iowa is not all that good this year. And, of course, you have Michigan at home as well. This Big Ten really could come down to that final game. It's not that unusual, but it's just interesting how the schedule makers did it, where, Michigan State don't play until mid to late February, and then early March they play their final game. I wouldn't be surprised if it's, that final noon game on March the 9th, Michigan State for the Big Ten title. And you know what? It makes the game all the more interesting. It's just going to be a noon game that March 9th. Is that a Saturday, I believe? No, it's a Sunday game. Wow. So either way, going to be exciting stuff for Michigan State down the stretch here. But look, that win against Michigan, it showed me a lot, because the Michigan State teams of the 2020s up to this point, frankly, they would have lost that game. Short of, obviously last year Michigan was terrible, so that last year's team was not going to lose it. And maybe the Sweet 16 team a couple of years back might have won it. But most of the 2020s for Michigan State basketball has not been good. And Tom Izzo has been, run through the ringer by people like me. But he has really regained the confidence that I believe fans had in him from that stretch in the 2000s and then in the 2010s, where he was really cooking, getting Final Four teams basically every 4 years. Michigan State was taking a trip to the Final Four, to the national championship. Maybe we're into this resurgence or this final hurrah for Tom Izzo to finally see if he can get another championship for Michigan State. Is it going to be this year? I'm not willing to go there. But if Michigan State wins out here, then yes, absolutely, I think they should be in a national contender. And the thing about it is, and I gotta say, I can't control the national media, obviously, but the fact that Michigan State has launched itself now into the top 10, the top 8, really, it's now the number 8 team in the country, first place in the Big Ten, or at the very least tied for first place in the Big Ten. How is nobody talking about Michigan State as a legitimate team? Like, I get it. Auburn and Alabama, the SEC, I understand. Those are big names. Duke, obviously, with Cooper Flag. I understand it. But maybe I'm just a Michigan State homer. But I would be shocked if this Michigan State team does not surprise some people and break some brackets. I really wouldn't. Like, this team has the molding. It's deep. It's a Tom Izzo team. He's I think to this point, he's probably the most experienced coach in college basketball right now, outside of a few others. I think if any team could surprise you in the tournament, it could very well be this team. But frankly, if you're a Michigan State fan, if you're following the team like me, I really don't think you should be all that surprised. I really don't. This is a good team, and it has the potentials to being a great team. So, there you go. Oh gosh, don't you hate it? I don't know if you guys even know what this means. I hate it when you are coughing when you have the hiccups, because then the hiccup comes and it messes with your coughs. You can't get a good cough. It's terrible. See, like right there, I got the hiccups. Trying to get these hiccups out, man. This is terrible. This is a great show, though. Anyway. Well, what am I supposed to do? I can't. You know what? Because this is tough. This is very tough. Okay. Oh my gosh. Seriously. Can somebody scare me? Somebody come up to my window and just bah. That would be nice. I would really appreciate it. Actually, I wouldn't. Don't do that. I might just kill you. I might. Man, why has it got to be the hiccups? Right during my show. Don't they know that I talk for a living? I don't talk for a living. I don't know how to get rid of the hiccups. Is there any like actual way to get rid of? You know what? Let's ask Google. Oh my gosh. Rid of hiccups. Okay. Okay. Breathe into a paper bag. What? Hold your breath. Okay. Here we go. You guys ready? Okay. I don't know if that worked. Sip cold water. Well, I do have ice cold water here. So maybe if I just bite into a lemon? No. Gargle ice water. Okay. I mean, I guess I could do that. Okay. Maybe that worked. I don't know. All right, we're gonna move on. That might. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe those actually work. Anyhowser. Okay. So I want to just briefly talk about this because we did mention it last week with the All-Star game and the Four Nations tournament. Unfortunately, those dirty, rotten Canadians, they got the last laugh. It's very, very sad when all that smack talking that us Americans did to the Canadians ends up making us look like buffoons. But you know what? I'll see y'all at the Olympics. That's right. That's right. Once Sidney Crosby, once Sid the old man is done, I doubt he's really going to be in these Olympics in 2026. I don't know how many years he's got left in the NHL, let alone playing in the Olympics. Not that he did that much in the Four Nations tournament anyway. But anyway, I do have to say this. All right. Leave it to Austin Matthews to be unclutch. The absolute king of unclutchness. Apparently, they were saying a stat there on the broadcast. Apparently, Austin Matthews is 0-7 or something like 0-6, 0-7 in winner-take-all games. I didn't know that was possible. I didn't know. He's like the James Harden of like need to have it in a big game, or like he's like the Joel Embiid. He is this superstar caliber player, this top of the league caliber player. And when the lights are brightest, when you need him the most, he leaves Connor McDavid wide open for a game-winning goal in overtime, despite the fact that he had multiple opportunities to win the game in overtime himself. Leave it to the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs, a franchise only known for being big, fat losers, despite the fact that they had the most Stanley Cups in franchise in NHL history. But either way, leave it to Austin Matthews. I can't wait to see him exit the first round of the playoffs this year. And furthermore, I cannot wait. It's going to be even more delicious to see the entire nation of Canada once again have to see their beloved Stanley Cup United States of America. I must say, last year, it was delicious seeing the Florida Panthers beat the Edmonton Oilers. And then even more delicious when Connor McDavid won the Conn Smythe despite losing in Game 7 to said Florida Panthers. You can't have ice outside in Florida. You can't. It's too hot. And yet they have won a Stanley Cup more recently than the entire country of Canada. Entire country. Not the Ottawa Senators, Calgary Flames, Edmonton Oilers, Vancouver Canucks. Obviously, the Maple Leafs and the Canadiens. It's crazy, though. It's crazy. I will look forward to it. I mean, obviously, they got a lot of really good teams in Canada right now. Edmonton it speaks for itself. Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl speaks for itself. Understood. And as much as I mock it, the Toronto Maple Leafs are still a very good team. But, do it in the playoffs. I really don't. At this point with the Maple Leafs, it's like you're so good in the regular season, but they just always lose. They always lose in the playoffs. So, look, I'm looking for. I don't know what American team is going to win it this year, but I know it's going to be delicious when the final Canadian team is eliminated. I don't have it anymore because I have YouTube TV, but I remember back as a kid, we used to have Canadian TV, especially if you're from Southeast Detroit. You used to have this. I believe it was CBC, Canadian Broadcast Channel. And that was how you could watch like hockey games. You had the United States broadcast, like the NBC or I guess back in the day it was NBC or Versus. Then you could watch the Canadian broadcast, and a lot of people, especially around me, they really like the Canadian broadcast. But it's gonna be even more delicious if we won our little Four Nations tournament. We did it. We won our little made up tournament with our tinfoil trophy, and then to just see them losing the NHL playoffs and the one that ultimately people care more about. Yeah, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough. So it's gonna be tough for them, not for me. It's gonna be great for me. Okay, all right. So speaking of the NHL, I have to talk about the Detroit Red Wings right now. Okay. The Red Wings coming back from the Four Nations tournament, you weren't really sure what you were going to get. They just came off of a loss going into the break, albeit to a good Tampa Bay Lightning team. And to that point, they had won, I think, 7 in a row. So they were playing really good hockey. They come off of the break and they go up 3-1 over the Wild. And you're like, all right back in business. We got like 2 minutes left. Okay, we're gonna walk away with a win, and they blow that game. They lose it in overtime. At the very least, you prefer to lose. If you're going to lose a game, lose it in overtime because you still get a point. And then the very next day, they got to play the Anaheim Ducks. And you're like, okay, well, the Wild are a playoff team. You're a playoff team too. So, it's understandable that you're going to lose a game like that. But the Ducks, I mean, they're terrible. The Ducks are awful. And you're up, 4-1. And you're like, okay, there's no way they're going to cut. And they come back. And at this point, I was like, okay, what are we like? Are we in our pre-March phase? Like the last 2 Marches, or I guess the last March mostly, the Red Wings just completely fall apart. And are we like seeing the signs of this? I'm not totally sure, but I'm not convinced that we're not. So the reason I am annoyed is on any other week, all right, at any other point, if you were to tell me over a weekend of 4 possible points that you get 3 out of those 4 points, I would say, all right, that's good. I can live with that. But given the standings, given the situation that the Red Wings find themselves in, given the advantage they could have gotten if they got that extra point, yes, I'm upset. Yes, I'm upset. You could have been 3 points ahead of the second wild card spot. You could have been just a few points out of that third spot in the Atlantic Division. And instead, we're talking about what could have been. Because, look, it's one thing to just lose a game. It's one thing, you go out there, you lose a game 3-2, or you lose a game 2-1, or you lose a game 4-2, something like that, all right? I get it. It's another thing when you are up late in a game and you blow it like that. And the Red Wings really can't afford to lose points like that. We saw what it was like last year when, okay, well, we're 9 points up, please. It's fine. Who cares that earlier in the year we lost to the San Jose Sharks, who were one of the worst teams in the league, or to the Anaheim Ducks, or to the Sharks again. What it is about these California teams, they always seem to beat us. Either way, those lost points on games where you're playing bad teams, or furthermore, you're playing teams that you just should beat or you have beat and you just blow it late, you can't miss those kinds of points. And tonight they got the Minnesota Wild, the team that they just blew that lead to. You got to think that these guys want to send a message. This time it's on the road. You got to think Minnesota wants to show them who's who and be like, okay, look, it wasn't just a fluke that we managed to come back on you. I don't think this is some, I don't think that losing that game to Minnesota is a nothing story. I would hope that it becomes one, but, down the stretch here, you got Minnesota, you got Columbus a couple of times, including that Stadium Series, which is, technically a neutral site game. But March, you're loaded with games. I mean, you got at least one back-to-back throughout the month, or you got two back-to-backs throughout the month, I should say. You got Carolina, who's a playoff team. You got Utah, and you got Washington. Washington's very good this year. Ottawa is fighting for their wild card spot. You got multiple games of Washington. You got multiple games of Ottawa. I'm just looking at all the you can't afford to be losing games that you have won, if that makes any sense. Now, the other thing I need to point out, because it feels so strange, but we actually have yet to have the NHL trade deadline. That is actually next week. This Four Nations Cup tournament thing, it really messed up with the dates of things. Normally, I think it would be around the end of February, but now it's going to be early March. And the Red Wings have already made a move. Now, it wasn't, an amazing. They dealt Ville Husso. Ville Husso goes to Anaheim for future considerations, which basically just means cap space. Because Ville Husso was getting paid a certain amount of money, and you ship him off for whatever future considerations might be. Maybe you get a draft pick or some money. I don't know. The Red Wings clearly have holes. They're definitely not a perfect team. Defensively, I think they could use a boost. Just looking up and down the roster here, you got a lot of young guys that I like in Simon Edvinsson and Johansson and, some of these other guys that have come up. You don't really have that, not difference maker. That's not really what I'm looking for. But maybe you eliminate, a little addition by subtraction. What exactly does a Tyler Mott do for you? What is a, what? I'm not saying that these guys necessarily got to be traded. What does Tarasenko really do for you? And plus, you already have a very large pool of prospects. A lot of prospects that are pretty high up in a lot of people's minds, a lot of teams' minds. You have your superstar, your stud in Lucas Raymond. You have a very good captain in Dylan Larkin. You got a goal scorer in DeBrincat and Kane. And you got an elite defenseman in Sider. That's enough to get you into the playoffs. But if you want to be able to, continue to build this team, continue to make it better, which I think Steve Yzerman has a vested interest in wanting to do, okay, in year, whatever it is, year 6, first of all, you had to make the playoffs, which is not set in stone at this point. And secondly, you want to show that you are going to continue to get better year in and year out like you have since Yzerman took over. But it starts with finishing the job. And there's not any one player in particular that I am, dying for the Red Wings to go out and trade for, because, look, to be perfectly frank with you guys, I don't know who that player is. However, I wouldn't mind to see, okay, we just got rid of Ville Husso. We have money. We have space. Maybe you go out and get someone on the defense. Maybe you go out and you even get a goalie. Maybe you go, because I don't know how well Alex Lyon is going to do here for you down the stretch. Cam Talbot has been pretty solid, but he's not sticking around for much longer. And maybe you want to have somebody to pair up with Sebastian Cosa in the event that he comes up, either late in the year. Maybe you just call him up. I don't know. Or, next year when Talbot is gone, and I doubt you're going to keep Alex Lyon really around for too much longer. Maybe you go out and you get that veteran goalie who's in kind of a bad spot, who has shown an ability to perform down the stretch. I don't know. I'm not a hockey expert. No, you could probably tell. I'm just a fan. All right. But there's definitely moves, or at least a move, that can be made, I would think. The team is just, to me, it's too good not to. And especially now with Andrew Kopp going down, and you don't know when you're getting Michael Rasmussen back. Neither of those guys are superstars. Neither of those guys are difference makers necessarily, but they do a lot of grind work. They do a lot of dirty work. You're going to want to fill those holes. It's similar to what the Pistons did with getting Dennis Schroeder. I'm not looking for Sidney Crosby or Connor McDavid. I am looking, though, for someone in Kopp's range, honestly. Someone in Rasmussen's range. I preferably a little better, but, somebody, basically. So, maybe you just end up bringing up some of the guys from Grand Rapids. I wouldn't be opposed to that either, but I think preferably I'd like to see maybe you pair some of those prospects that you got and go out and get a guy that is maybe not, 30 years old. That might not be advisable, but somebody who's maybe in their mid-20s. I know Dylan Cousins was a name that I'd heard thrown around from Buffalo. I don't know if that's realistic, but, maybe he's the kind of guy that you go after. So we'll check back in by the end of this, or by next week, to see where the Red Wings are at. They're going to have another game. Next week, it's going to be against Carolina, but you can go down this stretch here where you got Minnesota and then a couple of games against Columbus. If you can go out, let's see, that's 6 total points. I mean, if you can get 4+ points out of that, I can live with that. Like, if you can get 4 or more points out of this stretch of 3 games, I could probably live with that. It means you get at least 2 wins. Preferably, I think if you're going to lose a game, you lose the game against the Western Conference team. If you can beat Columbus back-to-back, that would be huge, because Columbus is right there behind you trying to get up into that wild card race. So it's going to be interesting down the stretch, and I think, obviously next week will be the week of the trade deadline, so we'll see if the Red Wings end up making a move by next Tuesday. You never know. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I got. That's the segment. What is this that they are showing on Red Wings Live? Oh, it's Alex Lyon. Titans undecided on number 1 pick. Mike Borgonzi admits team isn't close to making a decision on keeping or trading the pick. Dang. I don't know. We're not going to talk NFL draft because it's a little far away from me. Am I crazy? I thought Shedeur Sanders was or Travis Hunter. I thought either one of those guys was a number 1 prospect. I guess, obviously that awful BYU game that they had to end the year where the announcers were just glazing the heck out of them despite the fact that they got bombed. But also, you might say, well, is Shedeur really he had one winning season, right? And he put up a lot of big stats, but he's not, I don't know. He's not Jaden Daniels necessarily, but I don't know. I feel like Shedeur Sanders would play pretty well in the pros, but I don't know. I'm not a scout, so don't look at me. Don't ask me. All right. What do I know? Hold on. I wanted to just open that page up, and then also let me open up one of my favorite websites before we get this segment going here. So, all right. So, I realize that this is actually the final segment of the show. We're not even 40 minutes in, but you know what? That's fine. That's fine. It doesn't have to be a long show. There's not a whole lot of major stuff to talk about. I mean, hadn't been a lot of major news. The NFL offseason really hadn't gotten going just yet. So, oh gosh, is that the hiccups again? Hopefully not. Hopefully not. What's that? It's the hiccups again. All right, we gotta hold our breath. I gotta gargle the water. Is Alex Lyon and net again for their wings? Yeah. Interesting. Something wrong with Talbot? I feel like we haven't seen him in net in a while. I think Lyon was in back-to-back nights or back-to-back days. I'm surprised. Really, maybe he wasn't. Maybe it was Talbot on the Minnesota game, and then actually I think it was. I think it was Talbot, and then now I guess we're riding a little bit of Lyon. So anyhow, all right. So we got to talk a little NBA because it is that time of the year. Now, folks, fellas, friends, you know me. Maybe you don't. If you don't know, hi, I'm Mike. I like to talk about sports. Welcome to the show. One of the things that I really dread doing, because I'm just such a nice guy, I hate saying I told you so. I do. I truly do. But I did kind of tell you so. The Pistons have finally done something that I said for years. I have been saying this, that this every year basically it was like this will be the year that they do this. Now what is this, you might be asking? The year that they finally get to 30 wins. And not only have the Detroit Pistons done that, they've even gotten to 32. Now, everything else for me is somewhat gravy. However, in a sense, I would not be happy if the Pistons ended up making the plan. Now, why is that? Well, if you look at the standings right now, the Detroit Pistons sit at the 6th seed with a record of 32-26, 552 win percentage. They are, let's see, 3.5 games ahead of the 7th seed Orlando Magic, who are the top team in the play-in. Think of it this way. The Pistons are closer right now to being the 4 seed in the Eastern Conference, where they are only a game out of that between the Milwaukee Bucks and the Indiana Pacers, who are tied for it. They're closer to that than they are to the play-in tournament. And my question then is this. Just how good are the Pistons actually? Because I got to tell you, this was very similar to Michigan State. I feel as though nobody is talking enough about the Detroit Pistons. First of all, let's just set the stage here. Last year, the Pistons had the worst record in their franchise history. They won just 14 games, I think. I think it was 14, something like that. They had a historically bad losing streak. They fired their head coach. They fired their general manager. They hadn't had an all-star as a team since Blake Griffin back in 2019. They haven't won a playoff game, not a series, a game since 2008, 2009. This is a franchise that really has not done much of anything in a very long time, and right now they are comfortably in the playoffs. And frankly, if we're just being honest with ourselves, the way that they are playing right now, they could very well win a playoff series, if not multiple. So right now they're on a 7-game win streak. Throughout that 7-game win streak, they have beaten the Philadelphia 76ers, who are not in the playoffs. Charlotte Hornets, who are also not in the playoffs. The Bulls twice on the road, who technically speaking are, I believe, still in the playoffs. Yes, they are still that 10 seed in the East. Not looking great for them, but, they're in the 10 seed somewhat comfortably. Then they beat the San Antonio Spurs, who are on the road. on the road, who are not in the playoffs. Then they beat Atlanta on the road, who is, I believe, in the play-in. They are the 8th seed. And then probably the best win in the win streak, they beat the Clippers, a team that is, I believe, yes, that team that is in the playoffs straight up. Now, granted, you might say, "Oh, well, they didn't have Kawhi Leonard or what." Look, okay, we haven't had Jaden Ivey since like November, so I don't want to hear about that. Now, the real challenge, one might say, really is going to get going here because the Pistons have at home against Boston, at home against Denver, at home against Brooklyn. Brooklyn, the odd one out there. Then they got a road trip, and then they got a couple of games against Washington after that road trip. So maybe you say they bounce back. Either way, the Pistons to me have been so untalked about, and I think we have to point out a few of the players that are noteworthy. So in this stretch of the 7-game win streak, Cade Cunningham has played in 6 of those games. So let me just pull up his stats here on StatMuse. In those 6 games, Cade Cunningham is averaging 27 points, 9.5 assists, and 6 rebounds. And that's in the 6 games throughout this win streak because he didn't play against the Sixers, a game where we destroyed them, which is actually kind of crazy that we beat the Sixers despite not having Cade. He's been playing upwards of close to 40 minutes a game on a lot of these games, averaging 34 minutes a night throughout those games. He's dropped, his lowest point total in that stretch was 19 against Charlotte, but he also had a triple-double that night. So, you're going to take it, right? So 19, 20, 29, 25, 38 against Atlanta, then 32 last night against the Clippers. Cade Cunningham has been an absolute stud. Now, let's go even further. Cade Cunningham since January 2025. Let's take a look. Cade Cunningham since, let me do January 1st, excuse me. Since January 1st, 2025. Cade Cunningham, since January 1st, since the calendar flipped, averaging 27 points, 9 assists, 5 rebounds in 25 games. I'm sorry, but when you're averaging close to 30 points a game over, at this point, it's going to be a 2-month span, we're not just talking about, all NBA. We're talking about maybe potentially getting some MVP votes. I'm not saying he's going to win it. I think that'd be too far. But, the more that he does this, the more that he performs this way, it becomes a little bit more of a discussion. It certainly becomes more of, he is cementing himself as, obviously he's already the face of the Pistons, but as a potential face of the NBA. I mean, this is a guy that I think a lot of people, myself included, really didn't put too much stock into really going off at this level. Going into this year, I was thinking, yeah, maybe we could get 30 wins. Maybe we could make the play-in. But no, not only are we making the play-in, or not only are we above the play-in, I think we certainly match up well against some of these teams in the playoffs. Now, what teams am I thinking? Well, call me crazy, but I feel like if we played the Knicks in a 7-game series, I think we'd win. I really do. I don't know what it is about the Knicks. They're certainly not a bad team. Obviously, they're the 3rd seed, but we played pretty well against the Knicks. Let me just double check our record here against the Knicks. Okay. That's great. I realized that ESPN does not. There we go. So our first meeting, we lost the Knicks. Our second meeting, though, on the road in Madison Square Garden, we won the game. Then we beat them at home. Or then we beaten them twice on the road, and we have yet to play them at home. We'll play them at home at the end of the year. I believe we played them at home the first time. Yeah, so the one loss we had was at home, the first loss we played against them. But we've won 2 out of the 3, and we very well could win 3 out of the 4 by the end of the year. As far as the other teams, the Pacers, it could be a good series. We've not really played all that well against the Pacers. The Bucks, similar kind of thing. It might be able to be a good series, but I don't know how well we match up. But if we can match up with the Knicks, then just maybe that playoff series loss drought might finally end in Detroit. Now, it's not just Cade Cunningham as well. I need to also talk about a couple of other guys. Guy number one that I got to talk about is one Jalen Duren. Jalen Duren, since January 1st, is averaging a double-double. 13 points, 11 boards, 3 assists since January the 1st. He's been outstanding. He's been playing pretty high, over 25 minutes a game as well down that stretch as well. So it's not like he's getting limited time. He's been a lob threat for Cade, so he's basically a free assist for anybody. He's been great. He's developing into a really solid young center in this league as both a rim protector, but also as, just basically a free alley-oop. The other guy that I got to mention here as well is one that I have been a little tough on. But you know what? He's started to figure it out. And that's one Asar Thompson. Now, his numbers since January are not as amazing, but especially lately, his numbers have been really good. He's averaging 10 points, 5 boards, and 2 assists in the 24 games he's played since January the 1st. Now, granted, if you want to start that in the month of February, now let's go ahead and see what those numbers look like, because he has been absolutely outstanding in the month of February. In the month of February, he's been averaging 13 points, 5 boards, and 4 assists in the 10 games. And obviously, we still got a couple more games here. The 3 guys of Cade, Duren, and Asar, 3 guys that were first-round picks for this team, all from the previous tenure, the previous general manager, but still, guys that have all really developed and taken that next step forward. Now, the thing is, I will just point this out about Asar Thompson. One of the reasons that he is scoring a lot more points, you want to know how many threes he's attempted the month of February? Take a guess. 0. So we are not forcing this guy to shoot. He is doing a lot of driving to the basket. He's doing a lot of alley-oops. He's doing a lot of rim protection, hanging out near the bottom of the rim, close into the paint, and just picking up rebounds and dropping them in on second tries. Driving, getting fouls. He's not taking shots like for whatever reason we had him doing last year. Excuse me. And it's resulting in higher field goal percentages. I mean, just last night he had 71% field goal percentage. The night before, 87.5%. The other one was a bit of a stinker, 33%, but then 80%, 87.5%, 77%, 71%, and then a couple of not great nights for him before. But either way, the month of February, Asar Thompson has come alive. And obviously the addition of Dennis Schroeder has been excellent for the team offensively. He's been able to, be something of a stopgap for the Pistons, short of having a Jaden Ivey on your team. Overall, this Pistons team is a major story, and yet there's just not a lot of people talking about it. And I want to point it out because I think this team is certainly capable of winning a playoff series and maybe even capable of sneaking up on you. It's one of those things where when the Pistons have always been really good, when the Pistons have won championships, it's kind of been off the backs of guys that are not, necessarily superstars. Now, Cade, I think, is a superstar. Semantics aside, I think he just is. When you're averaging, basically 30 points all year long, I don't know what else to call that other than a superstar. But you have a lot of grinders on this team. Guys like Tobias Harris. Is Tobias Harris some superstar, stud, amazing player? No, but he gets a lot of work done for you. He gets a lot of scoring done for you. Malik Beasley, similar deal. Tim Hardaway Jr., similar deal. Isaiah Stewart. And then obviously Asar Thompson and Jalen Duren. We already talked about them. But the point is, this Pistons team is made up of a lot of guys that you just kind of put them together and you think, okay, is this really going to work? And if for whatever reason, the chemistry with JB as the coach and with Cade as the leader, it just kind of works. Now, are any of these other guys around Cade going to be elite, amazing superstar, Hall of Famers? I don't know. Probably not. But right now, if you're in the NBA, especially if you're in the Eastern Conference, you got to start paying attention to Pistons basketball because that team could certainly sneak up to you or sneak up on you if you're not paying attention. I mean, again, need I remind you, they are closer to the 4 seed than they are the 7 seed. And the way they're playing, obviously, this stretch here, these next couple of games here against Boston and Denver, it's not going to be easy. But this team is red hot. 7 wins in a row. I don't care who you're playing. I don't care if you're playing the G League. 7 wins in a row. Okay, maybe I care if you're playing the G League. 7 wins in a row in the NBA, that's not easy. It's not easy at all. You vaulted yourself out of that, 500 hole that you were in going into that win streak. And it's a shame that this team doesn't have any more. Well, I guess we got a couple of NBA TV broadcasts coming up, but it's a shame there aren't more, traditional national broadcasts on ESPN or ABC or TNT for the rest of this year. They keep playing the way they're playing like this. Wouldn't be surprised if next year we start seeing a whole lot more Pistons games on ESPN than we have in a very, very long time. That's it. That's pretty much all I got. Yeah, that's pretty much the show. I got nothing else. That was it. I'm looking forward to this Red Wings game. Hopefully they don't make me sad. And furthermore, I also hope that I don't actually have an illness because I would like to not have to use any more PTO and or laying around in my bed all day. I do not want that. So hoping I get better. Either way, I'm going to get going. Thank you all for listening in, hanging out. Be sure to hit the like, hit the subscribe. We'll be back again on next Tuesday, hopefully, assuming I don't get, the itis. We'll be back again next Tuesday to round up all the news of the week. And hopefully, by then, maybe even the Pistons will be in the 6th seed, or in the 4 seed. Wouldn't that be something? Either way, have a good night, everybody, and I will see you all next Tuesday. Good night. See ya. Goodbye.